recording on my computer. So good morning, everybody. This is What's Your Idea all about profession shows, sometimes combined into one show. And I have today with me John, who is, guess what? He's an architect, but he's mostly a professor of architecture, correct?
Correct. So I teach at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York.
Wow. How's New York nowadays?
I don't know. I only go down to get the mail.
Oh, okay. So you teach on Zoom?
I teach on Zoom. I've been to my office twice. It takes about a half an hour of filling out forms, getting my temperature taken just to go into my office and get some old books.
Wow. That's incredible. So the whole university is deserted.
Yes, we're calling it hybrid because we're a design school, art, architecture, painting, sculpture,
Oh, it's a
industrial
design
design.
school. I see, I see. It's not really a university. Okay, no, because
Correct.
I walked at the University of San Francisco and it was deserted. The lawns are beautiful and well, but there's nobody sitting on the lawns. So,
Right. So some of the classes do meet physically, but with very few people in the room.
oh, okay, now they're opening up a little bit.
Yeah.
25%, right?
Well, it's much less than that. My courses are lecture courses, so they're 100% online. But
Wow.
when you're designing, I mean, we have shops with 3D printers and laser cutters and all kinds of stuff the students need. So they can come into work if there are very few of them.
Okay, okay. So you can give them some guidance.
Right.
So I assume you all wear a mask and that uh, you don't have like the freedom not to, like in some states.
Oh, yeah. To be on campus, you need to get a COVID test, fill out a contract, fill out a form for your symptoms that day, get your temperature taken, and then you can go in the building.
Wow. Okay. So the first thing that came to my mind when I saw that building behind you is, did you ever build something that we know?
I
Did
worked
you
in
ever
major
design? Yeah.
offices.
Did you ever
Yeah,
design something?
I worked in major offices before I started teaching, so nobody would know it, but there's a huge, we had a governor in New York for a while, Nelson Rockefeller, and it was said that he had an edifice complex. So he was a major builder, and he built a new Capitol complex in Albany, New York, the state capital, and I worked on that project. And then I did some research projects on future technologies. Interesting, in the 1960s, we worked out a system whereby you go to a telephone pole and you rub, it's called Project Genie,
Mhm.
developed at MIT. You touch the pole and the computer finds a taxi and sends it to pick you up. Who knew it was going to be your cell phone? So there we are predicting Uber 40 years ago. 50
Wow.
years ago.
That's good. That's good.
Oh, we
So,
also worked on a vacuum tube for sending high-speed trains, which is something Elon Musk's followers are working on right now.
wow.
So
So
I've always been interested in techie stuff.
that's good. That's good. Do you can be a consultant for that for these companies if you are you like tech stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm director, I'm a consultant and director of research for a project called Timeship, which is a next generation cryonics facility for storing frozen people. So we're working with NASA engineers to develop the capsules in which people be preserved until several hundred years from now. They can be thawed out and fixed.
yeah, I heard that some people pay $200 million to be preserved.
No, it's only 200,000.
Oh, it's not 200 million, 200,000. So
And
that's not.
if you just do your head, it's 100,000.
Yeah, but
And
is it yearly?
no, total one payment, and then they take
And
care of you forever. And if you're in your 20s and you want to buy $200,000 worth of insurance, it'll cost you about $5 a month.
oh, okay.
In other words, it's not, most of the people frozen are not rich, very ordinary. It's very affordable. You have to plan ahead and buy insurance. If you're 80 years old and about to die, you have to be able to write out a check for 100,000 for your head. But if you're
Oh,
in your 20s and you're getting insurance, it's going to cost you, $5 or $10 a month.
oh yeah. What about if you already been reincarnated in somebody else? I mean, you never know.
Well, the people doing this, you notice I don't have a bracelet.
Yeah.
People who are signed up have a bracelet that says, in case of death, pack head in ice and call this 800 number. And
Oh,
because ideally you want to die in a hospital where there's a team ready to jump the moment
oh,
the
okay,
body
okay.
declares you dead.
To freeze you right away.
If you die accidentally, get hit by a bus, they have to go into emergency mode. But anyway,
Anyway, the body can maybe one day be active again, but the soul is already gone. I mean,
well,
anyway,
how many people, trick question, how many people were in the United States were frozen at some point and are now walking around?
zero.
500,000
Some people were
as embryos.
oh, as embryos.
Now, if you're a frozen embryo, what happens to your soul?
Well, oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question.
But
The
it's
soul
not
develops
hypothetical.
so when you take your first breath.
Some
I
say it's a conception.
yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
like
you're pretty active before your first breath. I mean, Mozart was learning music in the womb because his father, his mother, and his sister were all musicians, and he was absorbing the patterning, the brain patterning of that music in the womb, and that's before he took his first breath.
oh wow, wow. Anyway, to
But
go back
anyway,
to
let's talk.
architecture, I was looking, the Salesforce Tower here in San Francisco that was designed by Caesar Pelli.
Right.
Did you ever meet some of these famous architects?
Yeah, I went to school with quite a few. Um, One of them is Louis Kahn, who's generally recognized as the most important American architect after Frank Lloyd Wright. So I went to school with him. And I did 2 books on Kahn. One is called Between Silence and Light, Spirit in the Architecture of Louis I. Kahn. And another one just came out with Monticelli Press, is Louis Kahn, Architecture as Philosophy. So all watchers of this blog, run over to Amazon and buy the books. But in the meantime, uh, architecture, great architects are really profound people. And Louis Kahn was a spiritual master. And I deciphered his poetic spiritual philosophy in these 2 books. And there are very strong parallels with Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching, with Taoism. So, and similarly, Frank Lloyd Wright was very imbued with Eastern thought. So these people become very interesting. One of my teachers was Robert Venturi. He's one of the inventors or developers of what we call postmodernism. Venturi designed houses that evoke archetypal understandings of what a house is. So there's some really interesting stuff among my teachers.
No, I mean
One of my teachers,
all these names that you mentioned who went to school with you, what was particular about them? Can you name some buildings that they did?
Well, Louis Kahn is, again, the most important American architect after Frank Lloyd Wright. His buildings include the Richards Medical Towers at the University of Pennsylvania, the Salk Center, done for Jonas Salk in La Jolla, California, just north of San Diego, the library at Phillips Exeter Academy in New Hampshire, and the Kimball Museum in Fort Worth, Texas. He
So,
also
so
did,
was he special? Was he doing something special?
yeah, he was reinventing the human soul.
Okay, no, but when you go to these buildings that he designed, can you tell they are different from the others?
Sure.
You can.
Same with Frank Lloyd Wright. Same with Mies van der Rohe. Mies
Oh,
van der Rohe, German transplant, came to America and did in New York, the Seagram Building, which is one of the first glass skyscrapers. And here it is, Jesus, hang on, 60 years old.
wow.
And it's a gem of a building to this day, absolutely beautiful, bronze tinted glass and bronze mullions. So,
Nowadays, people are moving toward the net zero buildings like Ingenhoven. You heard about him, he's German. And he,
yeah, the
the energy net zero buildings, is that something that you teach?
today, yeah, when I was in school, people in the 60s, people weren't thinking about it as much, but
But have you done one?
no, I haven't been doing buildings since I started teaching in 1969, but I do consulting on various projects. I work with a company. We fabricate sculpture for the world's leading sculptors. So you
Oh,
see
okay,
the
so
giant metal sculptures, the artists can't make that. So the company I work with, Milgo Bufkin, makes for all the major artists.
okay, okay. So you do more artistic architecture.
Well, I mostly write books. So if you go to John Lobell on Amazon, you'll find half a dozen books on architecture that I've
Yeah,
written.
you send me one book and I start reading it.
Oh, cool.
Sounds interesting. It's not that hard to read. So you talking, I know that your profile said that it's all about creativity and all that. Do you get, when you teach, do you see students having different styles or do
Oh,
you,
yeah. I teach in an art and architecture school. So I have courses for architects and I have one course that's for the whole institute. So I have students in film, fashion, graphic design, painting.
a lot of
And
artists? Yeah.
yeah, and they do just really great work. Um, it's and it's an interesting education because think about a liberal arts education,
Yeah.
and you might be in a classroom with 20, 15 students. They're in desks in rows, and the teacher's talking about um, what's the impact on culture going to be when we don't have books anymore? What will the library of the future look like? And you might or might not raise your hand. In architecture school, you're in a design studio with a half a dozen other students, and the teacher says, okay, this semester we're going to design a library. What's a library? Do research. What's the history of libraries? What's a book? What does a book mean? What does it mean when we get information electronically as opposed to from books? Is the library going to be made out of brick and look to the past, or is it going to be made out of glass and look to the future? So there's a whole investigation of what knowledge means and how it is embedded in and part of its culture that the architecture student is addressing in designing a library. So it's a really rich education.
Yeah, well, libraries now look half-half. We have a lot more videos, for example, and we have a lot more computers in the libraries. So it's moving digitally, and people check out movies more than books.
What does that mean? How is the future going to be different? And how would you reflect what that means in the building you design?
You put more rows for videos, I guess. But
On the
now
other hand, if you go to a library and look at a video, you can stay at home and look at the video.
that too. But
So
right
those are the
now
things
you
you have
can
to
rent
think
the
about.
video too. I mean, you can rent. I mean, you can borrow a video. But you're
Right.
right. You can stay home and watch the video and just go on the library website and check it in and check it out, something like that. I don't
Right. So what
know.
does that mean? How does our society change when we do that? So those are the kinds of things we look at in my courses.
I think library is going to be mostly for events, like we have here in San Francisco, children events, speakers events, um, debates. And I go videotape those. I mean, I used to go videotape these events, but every month there are events, art expos. Every month there's a theme. Every month they feature an artist or something. But I think library is becoming the cultural center of the city rather than the book um, borrowing of the city. I mean, of course, there are still children books. Children love to hold books in their hands and look at the pictures. That you cannot take away from the children. I don't think it's going to go digital.
There's some beautiful videos on YouTube that show little children with a magazine, and they're going, "It's broken. The pictures don't move,"
Oh, really?
because they're used to iPads.
Oh, yeah. That I don't like that. I mean, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I like to hold a book to read to a child rather than having an iPad in my hand. But I don't know, those children, they know how to navigate with an iPad better than adults, and they enjoy it actually. They enjoy watching the cartoons. I don't know um, how good it is for their brains to just be fed all these things and to be creative because it's all fed to them. How they're going to hold a pencil in their hand and become creative themselves.
Well, they can make and edit videos,
Yeah,
which
they
we
can.
can't do.
Yeah, they can
So it doesn't go away, it just changes.
change the mode, right?
Right,
Um, but I'm sure their creativity would be different than people who used to hold color pencils in
correct.
their hands.
And one of the things going on, I'm a big fan of Marshall McLuhan, who's the great commentator on media. And uh, I'm observing a major change happening right now. I was the first person, I got my first Macintosh computer in the first 100 days when it very first came out. And it's very
1994.
cute. 1984, correct. So it's
Oh,
very cute.
uh-huh.
I had a modem, but I didn't use it much. It was very self-contained. In other words, in a way, it was a glorified typewriter. You wrote on it, and you create a word processing document. You can
Okay.
store it. You can put it on a floppy disk and give it to somebody else. You can go back and correct it, edit it, but it's all taking place in that world. Now, I say to my students, write a 2-page paper, make it in Microsoft Word and email it to me. Half of them don't know what I'm talking about. They don't do it. They post a Google Doc. What the hell is Google Docs? And what it is the document is no longer on my computer, but it's in the cloud. And
Right.
people who have permission can go in and edit it.
Right.
And so it's networked. It's a communal network rather than a standalone. I
No, they
have,
gotta have your password to access your document.
well, they're trying to improve that. Maybe use your fingerprint.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, I used to get books and music on my iPod and now on my iPhone. And I go to download some music from iTunes and it says, you already have this in the cloud. So I don't want it in the cloud. I want it downloaded on my device. So if I'm in the
Okay.
basement,
Okay.
I can listen to it. I know I have it. And that's not today's world. My students are just network plugged into all these things. They're not isolated within themselves. So
Oh.
that's a big change that's coming about. And in the absence of McLuhan, people don't really understand and talk about it. But it's one of the things I'm interested in.
Yeah, it's in the class, but you can have it encrypted and private. But that's up to you.
iTunes says no, it's in the cloud.
Yeah, it is in the cloud because an idea comes from you, but it might come from another dozen people, and it's the same idea. So,
Right. So
so
we're in this changing world. So we don't like Facebook and we don't like Mark Zuckerberg, but people should be making a better effort to understand what all that means, how it changes things. And everybody's quick to say, you know, you can go back to Socrates, who said writing was a bad idea. He said it'll ruin the children of Athens if they learn to write. You should be memorizing.
oh,
You know, you shouldn't be writing because once you write it, you'll forget it because you know it's always there in the book. Well, that's
oh,
2,500 years ago. Somebody was complaining about the new technology. You
now
know,
it's
get
everything is
over it.
open book. Now everything is open book.
Right. So, what do these things mean? What are the emerging skills and interests of young people in these new technologies?
They have
And
new skills. They don't need to memorize. They need to know how to look for the information.
well, not only that, I like to say to my students, how many of you took a course in word processing? Nobody. They're born knowing it.
Oh, okay.
When in the 1980s, there were rows of computers in the basement of the library of my school where they were teaching word processing. Nobody
Oh,
teaches word processing anymore.
it's
Everybody's born knowing it.
all right.
So we say of the kids today, they're digital natives. This stuff I'm trying to figure out. Like we have all these online platforms to do our teaching. Zoom is easy, but even Zoom, I don't know how to use the whiteboard. I don't know how to put students in individual groups. You know, if I have 12 students, how do I make 3 groups of 4 students each?
Oh, yeah,
My,
that's easy. You do rooms. You go to rooms.
my students know how to do it. I have to learn it, but they're born knowing that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can assign a student to take care of the breakout rooms.
There you go.
This way, you don't have to think about it too much. Yeah, I know. So,
Anyway, so I'm interested in all these things we've just been talking about. They create a stage or a platform on which we live out our lives. And that stage or platform during the Renaissance was uniform space and time that we see in Newtonian physics and perspective painting. Well, what is that stage and platform today on which we're living out our lives? That's what I try to talk about in my book, Visionary Creativity.
okay. Yeah, yeah. This is, the building like you have behind you are so much more beautiful and and, thought-provoking than a square building.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
on the building that you have behind you, I can ask a question about the statue. I can ask a question about the dome. I can ask a question about the column. I can ask the question about the roof. I mean, there's so many elements in that building, as when I see modern building, it's just a square or a round or a pyramid. It's all geometrical.
Oh, yeah. Modern architecture is one of the great disasters to afflict the world. But then we get to, gee, I'm not good on dates, but say 20, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, Frank Gehry's Bilbao Museum in Bilbao, Spain,
Yeah,
with
those
these
are
curved
beautiful.
retaining
Yeah,
wall.
the curve.
Um,
Yeah,
it's really a new kind of excitement.
yes, definitely. Yeah, Ingenhoven is also very creative. I don't know if you have seen some of his creation,
Uh,
but he let I guess, his team be as creative as they want. Um, so uh, I I understand that you're a consultant and people ask you mostly technical questions, but then when it comes to the final look of a building, it's up to them.
oh, well, I don't really, I haven't been consulting on just a couple buildings, but more often I consult on technology projects and I address what it means culturally.
Oh, okay. If it fits the modern time.
Yeah, and how it's going to change things in modern times. What are our modern times all about? You know,
Okay, so
and it's interesting why, Elon Musk has done SpaceX
car.
launching vehicles into space at 1/10 the cost of NASA or Lockheed. He's done Tesla, which is pioneering the electric car. He has a neuroscience company that implants chips in the brain. Eventually, you get your whole education in a chip and get it implanted. I remember being in the 7th grade doing algebra, and I said, why do I have to learn this? Why aren't we born knowing this? I want to get on with my life. I have to spend years, learning all this stuff.
And
Well,
then you
eventually,
forget it after you graduate, right?
yeah, it'll be in a chip. Um, he's done Hyperloop, which is a high-speed vacuum tube train. He's done the Boring Company that build tunnels under cities. Why aren't there dozens of Elon Musks? Why is there only
He
one?
just got paid $2.7 billion. That was his paycheck last week.
Well, yeah, but he started all this stuff when he had no money,
Yes,
or
that's
he
true.
just had the money from selling PayPal. But uh,
Yeah,
I've 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 found that if you go to investors, getting the money is easy.
really?
Having the idea is the hard part. 90% of what you bring to an investor, they won't invest in because it's not a good idea.
Oh,
It's gonna flop. But to have a
okay.
good idea is really not easy.
Yeah, if an idea is hard, then they start to invest in it because they want that idea to become a reality.
Correct.
They already booked their flight to the space with him. So,
Right. There you go.
yeah, they
So
are
if you wanted to build a space company, number one, you sell 1,000 seats
tickets. Yeah.
at $1 million each, and you've got $1 billion on day one. Now build the company.
Yeah, exactly. Like Jeff Bezos is doing the same thing as
Right.
Elon Musk. He wants to be on the forefront.
Elon Musk is going to do Mars and Bezos is going to do the moon.
Okay. They're all very ambitious. I mean,
Right.
they all want to own the world. I mean, in different ways. They want to be number one in innovation. I know that Jeff Bezos is eliminating every checkout. Now you can check out with your phone from a grocery store.
So it's interesting that people complain about that. And I like to respond. My mother did high school in 3 years, Barnard, which is part of Columbia University, in 3 years. I was the first person to go to Columbia Law School. She
Really?
then got a job in the Interior Department in Washington typing.
Oh, because
If,
women were not valued.
if you made one mistake, you had to retype the whole page.
Exactly.
It was before whiteout. They didn't even have whiteout.
Oh, they didn't? Oh my
Now,
God.
I don't think that's what she should have been doing.
No.
I don't think anybody should be at a checkout counter. There are better things for human beings to do. Let the computer do the checkout. Let human
I
beings
agree. I
just think
agree. I
more.
agree. Yeah, yeah. But a lot of people don't know how to do anything else. They just,
Well, in New York, we're spending enough money on each student in the New York City school system to send them all to Swiss boarding schools. So there's no excuse. Someone's got to fix education.
yeah, we can retrain them to another, to be coders and they'll be just fine.
Well, not necessarily coders. I mean, my students are, like I said, they're filmmakers, fashion designers, product designers, painters, on and on. There are all kinds of human activities which we need
Some of
more of.
them are architects, right?
And architects, right?
Okay. At the end
And
of the line.
interestingly, there have been recessions over the past 40 years that wipe out a lot of architectural jobs. Could be we're in one now, we'll see. But,
Is it easier to be an architect with the computer now?
well, I don't know about easier, but it changes. If you go back to the 1880s, they didn't have blueprint machines. So if you needed 10 sets of drawings of a building, and let's say there's 50 pages in the set,
Mm-hmm.
somebody had to draw
Right,
500 drawings with a pencil.
right.
Then they came up with blueprint machines. So you make one, and then you can blueprint as many copies as you want, very
Right.
cheap.
With the
And
printing
all
machine.
those jobs disappeared for the tracing. But
Oh, the
then
tracer, yeah. Okay.
uh, if
Now
you
now it's
the
simplified.
computer.
Now it's
So
on the computer.
now, if you go to a big office that does buildings all over the world, let's say uh, today that office has 200 people. Well, 50 years ago, to do the same amount of work, that office would have had 1,000 people.
Ah.
And so there's less people, but there's more jobs than ever because, you know, they
The
built an
population
entire
is
modern
growing.
world. They built an entire new world every 10 years in China.
Oh,
You
wow.
know, architectural work in the world. You know, I like to show my students slides of Dubai. It was a little pearl diving village. 20 years later, it's got a half a mile tall building in the busiest airport in the world. 20 years is
Oh, yeah,
nothing.
yeah, yeah.
How
With
they did
the
that?
during coronavirus, they built a whole hospital in like less than a week, I think. And then they can build all kinds of necessary buildings very quickly in China.
Right.
They,
So
they,
there's plenty of work for architects.
oh yeah, but they also use now 3D printing to build roads and things that don't need to be built by human. Um,
Right.
do you use 3D printing in your teaching?
Oh, yeah. Uh, one of my colleagues, younger colleagues who's into this technology, and I have so many wonderful people at my school, Pratt Institute. But anyway, one of my colleagues decided every student, right, so let me back up. Everybody has an inkjet printer
Mm.
and they cost $60.
Oh, wow. That's not
Now, if you go back 50 years, a printer like that would have been $10,000.
okay.
And now it's, maybe you can get it for $40 because they're going to make the money when you buy the ink.
Okay.
But his idea was every student should have a 3D printer.
Okay.
So
Agree.
we have a room in the basement filled with 3D printers that are making 3D printers.
Okay, that's funny. Yeah, I think 3D printers, you should have one if you're an architect because you can try different models within
Why?
very quickly right in front of you. I mean, of course, the big ones cost a lot of money. If you're going to build a building, those are huge. Uh,
Right,
but I've seen them at Autodesk Gallery. They they are used in construction all the time.
right.
So the definition of an architect is no longer just designing. It's also go out there and go build it, right? It's not just,
Well, there are some architectural firms that they're called design build, where the client comes to them and says, I need a building.
yeah,
And the architect turns over a key
yeah,
to the finished building. And
yeah.
there are other firms where the architect turns over drawings and then a contractor will build the building. So it varies. But um, one of the things that we call for in architecture is to think about what it means. Right now, people are looking at issues of equity, energy use, what we're doing to land, ecological balance, all of these issues um, as
Are
part
very,
of architecture.
yes. Now, like you said, you can put on a key with all the drawings in it and all that. But what if you want a house that looks different from the others? Then you need to really go old fashioned and design it, not from a pre-made model, but like something special. If you want something special.
Oh, I'm going to recommend to our audience to go to Google Image and look up Bruce Goff, Brucegoff. And he is a
BRUCEBR.
friend of Frank Lloyd Wright. And um, to get a little bit into the sociology, um, the people who go to architects are typically upper middle class people.
Okay.
And they're often a matter of affording it, but it's also, they can be adventurous. They want to be a patron of somebody doing something new and cutting edge.
All right.
And middle class people don't want to look different from their neighbors.
They
But
don't? Huh.
no, that's why all those houses are the same in the suburbs.
Oh, yeah,
But
that's right. Okay.
in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, everybody went to Bruce Goff for their houses. And you have these ordinary suburban streets, and all of a sudden looks like somebody landed a flying saucer. And that's a Bruce Goff house. So he does really incredible, very different stuff.
Okay. So
So there are interesting architects out there.
if someone wants something different than their neighbor, they have to pay more.
It depends. Um, the neighbor's house has to be built and your house has to be built. So the issue is more, what do people want than the money? Money can
And
be
also,
worked
and
out.
also, if you can find the right uh, construction company to do something different, because some
Right.
construction company don't know how to do a variety of things.
Right. Well, Bruce Goff would do things like instead of putting shingles on the side of the building, he puts indoor-outdoor carpeting.
Oh, that's way different.
And it lasts forever. It's made out of nylon. It's totally indestructible. You
Hmm.
just tack that to the wall and there's your building.
Oh, I never heard of that one. I have to look it up.
So anyway, tell me some of the kinds of people you typically interview.
Well, actually, on All About Your Profession, uh, which I think you would fit better, I interview people of different profession. Like I met at the Embarcadero, I met um, a lady who was finishing her degree to be veterinarian. She was from another country, and because there's a lack of veterinarian in the United States, she was granted to stay here. But I also interview people of all professions, like could be a musician, could be um,
Cool.
it could be an accountant, a financial advisor, whoever have can bring us some lights on the profession is can be a guest on the show. So for a while, I noticed myself, I was interviewing too many people in the video industry. That's because those are the people I got in contact with. So then I said, oh my God, that brought me to kind of look for different kind of industry. And I started interviewing different kind of people. Um, but so that's all about your profession. But first, when I read your profile, I thought you would be more, what's your ideas? So do you have a different
So
perspective?
let's wrap up by talking about some ideas.
Yeah.
And now I'm standing in front of Piranesi, and these are the Carre by Piranesi. But anyway, another great architect. Let me recommend to your audience my book, Visionary Creativity, How New Worlds Are Born. And in that book, I look at culture as a stage on which our lives unfold, and how, as culture changes, creativity changes. So visionary creatives swim in the culture of their day. And then, so what a visionary creative does is we ordinary people see the world that we think is there. Visionary creative people see the world that's actually there, which we may not be open to yet. And then they say, I'm seeing this world, why doesn't everybody else see it? And so what they then do is create things, architecture, painting, new theories in science, technologies, that will make apparent to everybody else what they are themselves experiencing. And those things pull us into an emerging future. So that's my idea.
Okay. Okay. So I'm glad we got to it and talk about it. So by reading your book, people will better understand the evolution of creativity.
Absolutely. So what else Eileen, should we wrap up, or do you have anything else you want to ask?
No, I wanted to ask you what's behind you there.
This is a great 1700s figure, Piranesi, and he did only a few buildings, but he did lots of prints. He did views of Rome. So in the 1700s, English young men and women would go on the grand tour. And when doing so, they would go to Rome and Herculaneum, Pompeii, and see all the ruins that they had studied in school. And there was no photography, so they would buy prints of what they saw, and they would buy prints by Piranesi. And then he did a series called Le Carre, or the Prisons. And so this is one of those prisons, which
Oh,
is thought of as a part of the opening imagination of modern architecture.
Oh, that's true. That's true. When they show me a building for, low housing, I say that's not a building, that's a prison, that's a jail.
Ah,
Because it's just apartments on top of other apartments. But those buildings that you have behind you, it's amazing that they were able to build them with the little means that they have in those times, and they were able to do things that, even though we have more means, we cannot do, like Notre Dame and all these huge buildings. They were able to do them from almost no technology help, and
right.
they were beautiful too. And now we have all this technology to help us, and we create stuff that are ugly with it instead of something that is even more beautiful.
So we'll go back to,
We have a lot of help to build, but we don't build as beautifully as those who did not have all those
Palladium.
tools.
So Eileen, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing this broadcast.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. I know that you had to wonder where you would fit in. So I'll put you on what's your idea then, okay? Um,
Great.
thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.